Commander Ryok floated in front of the massive holographic screen that dominated the observation deck of their monitoring station. The blue and green planet below spun lazily, looking peaceful and harmless from this distance. For over 200 years, Earth had carried the same boring label in their files. Low Threat Category 7. It was basically the galactic equivalent of putting a sleepy neighborhood cat on a watch list. Officer Miran drifted over to his commander, his tentacles twitching with excitement as he pointed at the sensor readings. Small streaks of fire were shooting up from Earth's surface, primitive chemical rockets that barely made it to their own moon. "Commander, look at this. These humans are actually getting into space now. They've built some kind of stations up. There too. Maybe we should think about changing their threat level." Ryok's crystalline features shifted into what humans might recognize as a smirk. His species had been watching civilizations rise and fall for thousands of years, and Earth was nothing special. "Miran, you're young. You haven't seen enough worlds yet." He waved his hand dismissively, the crystals on his arm catching the light from the hologram. "Sure, they can light a fire under a metal tube and throw themselves at their moon. But look at what they don't have." The display zoomed in on one of the human spacecraft. It was crude, held together with bolts and hope. No energy shields, no faster-than-light engines. They're still burning chemical fuel like cavemen making fire. Ryok pulled up another screen showing Earth's surface, where different colored patches represented various human nations. And the most telling sign of all, they can't even work together as one planet. Look at all those borders, all those separate governments. Half of them are probably planning to fight the other half. Miran studied the data, his enthusiasm dampening. "I suppose you're right, sir. It's just that they seem to be moving faster than the projections suggested they would." "Every species has growth spurts," Ryok replied, already turning away from the display. "But the pattern is always the same. They either destroy themselves fighting over resources, or they plateau at this level for centuries. Category 7 is perfect for them. File the standard report and schedule the next check-in for 50 years from now." What neither of these alien observers knew was that far below them, in a facility buried 3 levels beneath the bustling streets of Seoul, Dr. Jinwoo Park was having the kind of night that would change everything. He'd been working on electromagnetic anomaly detection for months, trying to track satellite interference that was affecting their communications networks. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, and his eyes were burning from staring at the screens. But something kept nagging at him. The signal patterns he was seeing didn't match anything in their databases. They were too regular, too sophisticated to be natural phenomena, but also too advanced to be from any known human technology. As he ran the data through another filter, his blood ran cold. The signals were coming from a fixed point in space, and they were scanning Earth in systematic patterns. Jinwoo's hands trembled as he reached for his secure phone. Whatever was up there, it was watching them. The massive chambers of the Galactic Council buzzed with excitement as the final vote was tallied. Earth had been chosen as the test case for their newest diplomatic approach called gentle integration. Instead of the old methods of conquering primitive worlds or ignoring them completely, they would try a softer touch. Think of it like introducing your new pet to your household, slow, careful, and with lots of treats. Ambassador Thane felt honored to lead this historic mission. His sleek diplomatic vessel, about the size of a city block, began its descent toward the 3rd planet from that small yellow star. Everything in their files suggested this would be routine work. Humans were divided into hundreds of small territories, constantly fighting among themselves. The plan was simple: land near their biggest settlement, meet with whatever local chief was in charge, and slowly introduce them to galactic civilization over the next few decades. "Approaching the target zone now," reported his pilot as they broke through Earth's atmosphere. They positioned themselves directly over New York City, expecting to cause some primitive panic and maybe get a few tribal leaders to come out and worship their ship. This was how it had worked on dozens of other worlds, but something went wrong almost immediately. Within minutes of their arrival, communication networks across the entire planet lit up like a festival. Ambassador Thane watched in confusion as signals bounced between continents at incredible speed. In Seoul, Prime Minister Hyun-woo Kim was already on a secure video call with leaders from America, Germany, Russia, and 10 other major nations. The humans weren't running around screaming or falling to their knees. They were organizing. "Sir, you need to see this," called Science Officer Kale from his monitoring station. His 3 eyes were wide with disbelief as data streams flowed across his screens. "The humans have established a unified command structure in less than 3 hours. That's faster than most spacefaring civilizations manage during a crisis." Thane floated over to look at the readings. Communication satellites were relaying encrypted messages between every major population center on the planet. Military units were moving into coordinated positions, but not to attack. They were setting up some kind of defensive perimeter. Scientists were sharing data at speeds that seemed impossible for a species that still used primitive computers. "This doesn't match our intelligence reports," Thane muttered, his confidence beginning to crack. "The files say these humans spend most of their time fighting each other. They're supposed to be fragmented, unable to work together on a planetary scale." Kale pulled up more data, his voice growing more concerned. "Ambassador, they've already begun analyzing our ship's energy signatures. Multiple facilities around the globe are focusing sensor arrays on our position and sharing the data in real time. They're not just coordinating, they're studying us. The most shocking discovery came when their translation protocols started picking up human communications. Instead of the panicked chatter they expected, they were hearing calm, professional discussions. Military commanders were coordinating without a single argument. Scientists from different nations were sharing their most classified research without hesitation. Politicians who had been enemies just hours before were now working together like they'd been allies for years. "How is this possible?" Thane whispered. "Our psychological profiles indicated humans were tribal, competitive, and unable to trust each other during stress situations." Down on Earth, in a secure bunker beneath Geneva, Dr. Seon-woo Lee was coordinating with teams across 6 continents. The alien ship had given humanity something they'd never had before, a common purpose that transcended all their petty differences. For the first time in human history, the entire species was truly united. And that was just the beginning. The emergency session at the United Nations had never seen anything like this before. President Elena Vasquez stood at the podium, looking out at representatives from every nation on Earth. For the first time in the organization's history, not a single seat was empty. Even countries that had been at war just days earlier were sitting side by side, their attention focused on the massive alien ship hovering over New York. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Vasquez began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment, "we are no longer alone in the universe. And we need to respond as one species, not as separate nations." The room erupted in agreement rather than the usual chaos of political debate. Something incredible was happening to humanity. The presence of an alien visitor had flipped a switch that no one knew existed. Ancient rivalries were forgotten, territorial disputes seemed suddenly meaningless, and the urge to work together had become overwhelming. In Seoul, General Min Ho Kang was experiencing the same phenomenon. His secure phone hadn't stopped ringing. For 2 days, as military leaders from around the world reached out to coordinate their response. The Russian general, who he'd been in heated negotiations with just last week, was now sharing intelligence freely. The American admiral, who had been his rival for years, was asking for his advice on defensive positioning. "This is unprecedented," General Kang told his staff as he reviewed the global military response. "We've established a unified command structure that includes every major military power on Earth. No arguments, no power struggles, no demands for leadership positions. Everyone just wants to work together." Meanwhile, in a cramped office in Seoul National University, Dr. Soo-young Lee was living on coffee and determination. As Earth's most respected linguist, she'd been tasked with the impossible job of decoding alien communications. But she wasn't working alone. Her computer screen showed video calls with colleagues in Moscow, Tokyo, Sao Paulo, and 15 other cities around the world. "The mathematical patterns are becoming clearer," she told her international team during their latest session. "Their language seems to be based on harmonic frequencies rather than traditional grammar structures." A professor from Russia nodded and shared his own findings, while a researcher from Japan added computational analysis that supported her theory. The sharing of information was happening at a speed that amazed everyone involved. Nations that had guarded their secrets for centuries were opening their databases to anyone who could help. Dr. Suyung found herself with access to research from every major university on Earth, including classified projects that had been hidden for decades. At the same time, engineer Won Ho Choi was having his own breakthrough moment. Working from an observatory outside Seoul, he'd been analyzing the energy signatures coming from the alien ship. The data was complex, but he wasn't trying to understand it alone. His findings were being shared instantly with physicists in Geneva, engineers in Tokyo, and researchers in California. "The propulsion system is unlike anything we've theorized," he explained during a global video conference that included over 300 scientists. "But if we combine our different approaches to analysis, we might be able to understand how it works." Above them all, Ambassador Thane watched this coordination with growing alarm. His species had studied thousands of civilizations, and he'd never seen anything like this. The human response was defying every prediction in their files. According to their research, humans were supposed to be fractured, competitive, and unable to trust each other during crisis situations. Instead, they were demonstrating the kind of unity that even advanced galactic civilizations struggled to achieve. Something was very wrong with their threat assessment, and Thane was beginning to suspect that Earth might be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The conference room in Geneva had been transformed into something that looked like a scene from a science fiction movie. Sleek alien technology hummed alongside human equipment, while translators worked frantically to bridge the gap between two completely different forms of communication. The air buzzed with nervous energy as humanity prepared for its first official conversation with visitors from another world. Dr. Hyejin Nam sat across from Ambassador Thane, her hands folded calmly on the polished table. As Earth's representative, for the scientific community, she'd been chosen for her brilliant mind and her ability to stay cool under pressure. Behind her warm smile and friendly demeanor, her brain was working at full speed, analyzing every detail of the aliens' appearance, technology, and behavior. "Ambassador Thane," she began, her voice pleasant and curious, "we're absolutely fascinated by your civilization. Could you tell us about how you maintain peace across such vast distances? Your galactic defensive structures must be incredibly sophisticated." Ambassador Thane relaxed slightly. This was exactly the kind of question he'd expected from a primitive species. They were impressed by galactic civilization and wanted to learn about its wonders. "Our defense networks span multiple star systems," he explained proudly. "We have monitoring stations positioned at key gravitational points, and our rapid response fleets can reach most sectors within standard time units." Dr. Hyejin nodded enthusiastically, as if she were a student learning from a wise teacher. "How fascinating! And I imagine you must have some way of classifying different species based on their potential threat levels." "Indeed," Thane replied, warming to the subject. "We use a comprehensive system that evaluates technological capability, social organization, and expansion potential. It helps us determine how to interact with each civilization we encounter." What Ambassador Thane didn't realize was that Dr. Hyejin was mentally cataloging every piece of information he provided. Her seemingly innocent questions were carefully designed to map out the alien defense network, understand their strategic thinking, and identify potential weaknesses. Behind her friendly smile, she was conducting one of the most sophisticated intelligence-gathering operations in human history. Captain Sunho Park, sitting nearby in his crisp military uniform, leaned forward with the eager expression of someone genuinely interested in learning about the galaxy. "This is incredible," he said. "How do different civilizations trade with each other across such vast distances? Your communication networks must be amazing to coordinate everything." Officer Miran, monitoring the conversation from his position near the wall, felt a slight chill run through him. These questions seemed awfully specific for a species that had barely reached its own moon. But Ambassador Thane was enjoying the attention and continued sharing information freely. "Our trade routes follow established hyperspace lanes," Thane explained. "Communication relays are positioned at regular intervals, allowing messages to travel between systems in reasonable time frames. The network has been built up over thousands of years." Captain Park nodded thoughtfully, mentally mapping out the information. And I assume you have protocols for when new species want to join this network, some kind of evaluation process. Certainly, Thane replied. New species must demonstrate technological readiness, social stability, and peaceful intentions before being granted access to our trade networks and communication systems. What neither alien realized was that every word of this conversation was being transmitted to analysis teams around the world. In hidden facilities beneath Seoul, Moscow, and Washington, experts were already working to understand the alien technology, map their strategic positions, and identify opportunities for humanity to advance its own capabilities. Dr. Hyejin smiled sweetly and asked her next question. How do you handle species that develop faster than expected? That must present interesting challenges for your classification system. For the first time, Ambassador Thane hesitated. Something about that question felt different, more pointed than the others. But surely these primitive humans couldn't be that sophisticated in their thinking. Officer Miran made a mental note to review the threat assessment files as soon as this meeting ended. 3 stories beneath the bustling streets of Seoul, Dr. Ji-young Shin hadn't seen sunlight in 6 days. The underground facility hummed with activity as teams of scientists worked in shifts around the clock, their eyes bloodshot from staring at screens filled with alien data. Coffee cups and energy drink cans littered every available surface, and the air recycling system struggled to keep up with the intensity of human activity. Run the frequency analysis again, Dr. Shin called out to her team, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. We're missing something in the harmonic patterns. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. During the diplomatic meetings, human recording equipment had captured not just the aliens' words, but also the subtle electromagnetic emissions from their technology. Every time Ambassador Thane's ship communicated with his home base, every energy signature from their equipment, every small technical detail had been recorded and analyzed. Now, Dr. Shin's team was doing something that should have been impossible. They were reverse engineering alien technology, using nothing but intercepted signals and human ingenuity. The shield harmonics were starting to make sense. The aliens used rotating electromagnetic fields that created protective barriers around their ships. Within 2 weeks, her team had built a prototype that could generate similar effects on a small scale. Dr. Shin, you need to see this, called out one of her assistants, pointing excitedly at a computer screen. We've managed to replicate their basic propulsion principles. It's not faster than light yet, but it's definitely more efficient than anything we've ever built. Meanwhile, in Geneva, Agent Tae-hyun-oh was coordinating the most ambitious intelligence operation in human history. His secure communication lines connected hidden facilities across the globe, sharing information at speeds that amazed everyone involved. Traditional spy agencies that had spent decades trying to steal secrets from each other were now working together like parts of a single machine. Moscow team reports success with the energy conversion systems, he announced during the daily briefing. Colorado Springs has made progress on their communication protocols, and our friends in Tokyo think they've figured out how their artificial gravity works. The most incredible breakthrough came from an unlikely source. Linguist Minji Han had been struggling to understand the alien language for weeks, running computer analysis on every conversation recorded during the diplomatic meetings. She'd tried traditional linguistic approaches, cultural analysis, and even musical pattern recognition. Nothing had worked until she realized she was thinking about the problem all wrong. They're not using language the way we do, she explained excitedly to her international team during a video conference at 3 in the morning. Their communications are based on mathematical relationships, not grammar structures. Each word is actually a complex equation that describes not just meaning but emotional context, probability factors, and logical connections. Once she'd cracked that code, everything else fell into place. Within days, human cryptographers were partially understanding alien communications, including some of their reports back to the Galactic Council. What they learned was both thrilling and terrifying. High above Earth, Commander Ryok was sending increasingly frantic reports to his superiors. Council members, we have a serious problem. These humans are advancing at impossible speeds. They've learned more about our technology in weeks than most species discover in decades. Our threat assessment was catastrophically wrong, the alien. Monitoring equipment showed human progress that defied all known patterns of technological development. Species were supposed to take centuries to understand basic galactic technology. Humans were doing it in days. "Send more observers immediately," came the swift reply from the Galactic Council. "We need a complete reassessment of Earth's capabilities." But what the Council didn't realize was that it was already too late. Every new observer they sent, every piece of equipment they brought, every communication they transmitted was being analyzed, understood, and reverse-engineered by minds that processed information faster than they'd ever encountered. Humanity wasn't just learning about alien technology, they were preparing to surpass it. The emergency council chambers had never seen anything like this before. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered in their floating seats, their various forms of communication creating a buzz of nervous energy that filled the vast space. At the center of it all, Dr. Uravel stood before the holographic displays, her forearms gesturing frantically as she presented data that was making everyone increasingly uncomfortable. Dr. Vel had spent her entire career studying how civilizations develop, watching species slowly climb the ladder of technological advancement over thousands of years. She was considered the galaxy's top expert on evolutionary patterns, and her predictions had guided council policy for centuries. But the data streaming in from Earth was breaking every rule she thought she understood. "Council members," she began, her voice trembling with excitement and fear, "we need to completely rethink everything we know about human development. What we're seeing defies all known patterns of technological evolution." The massive holographic display, lit up with charts and graphs showing human progress over the past few months. The lines weren't climbing steadily upward like most species. They were shooting up at impossible angles, creating curves that looked more like rocket trajectories than normal development patterns. "Look at this data," Dr. Vel continued, pointing to a particular section of the display. "In just 2 weeks, humans have reverse-engineered our basic shield technology. Most species take centuries to understand electromagnetic field manipulation. Humans figured it out from intercepted signals alone." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Council members from different worlds exchanged worried glances, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of concern. "But that's not the most shocking part," Dr. Vel added, her voice growing more urgent. "Their learning acceleration is increasing. Each breakthrough leads to faster subsequent discoveries. They're not just learning our technology, they're improving it." Council leader Prime Zor, whose species had been leaders in galactic affairs for over 10,000 years, felt something he hadn't experienced in millennia: genuine fear. His ancient mind processed the implications as Dr. Vel continued her presentation. "We've been monitoring their global communication networks," she explained. "The speed at which they share information and coordinate research across their entire planet is unprecedented. When one human makes a discovery, within hours, every other human working on related problems knows about it and builds upon it." The data showed human research facilities working in perfect synchronization, sharing breakthroughs instantly across continents. What should have taken decades of isolated work was happening in real-time collaboration between brilliant minds around the globe. "Prime Zor," Dr. Vel said, turning to address the council leader directly, "we've made a terrible mistake. We classified humans as low threat because we evaluated them at a single point in time. But humans don't develop linearly like other species. They develop exponentially." The holographic display showed comparison charts between human advancement and other galactic civilizations. While most species followed predictable curves of slow, steady progress, the human line looked like a wall shooting straight up into the sky. "Their primitive status isn't a permanent condition," Dr. Vel continued. "It's simply where they happened to be when we first observed them. We made contact at the worst possible moment, just as they were entering their exponential growth phase." Prime Zor's ancient features darkened as he absorbed the implications. "Are you telling me that this species could surpass our technological capabilities?" "Not could," Dr. Vel replied grimly. "Will. Based on current acceleration patterns, humans will achieve technology levels equivalent to our most advanced civilizations, within decades, not centuries. The chamber fell silent as the full weight of their situation became clear. They had approached Earth expecting to find a primitive species that would take thousands of years to become relevant. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant that was now developing at speeds that threatened the very foundation of galactic civilization. "What do we do?" whispered a council member from the back of the chamber. Prime Zor stared at the data, knowing that the answer to that question would determine the fate of the entire galaxy. The demonstration room in the underground Geneva facility felt different today. The usual diplomatic pleasantries were gone, replaced by an atmosphere of quiet confidence that made Ambassador Thane's skin crawl. General Jae-hyun Lee stood at the center of the room, his military bearing more pronounced than during their previous meetings. Flanked by Admiral So-hee Kim and Air Marshal Dong-ho Park, he looked like a man who was about to reveal secrets that would change everything. "Ambassador Thane," General Lee began, his voice calm but carrying an undertone that made the alien delegation shift uncomfortably. "We think it's time to show you what Earth's defensive capabilities actually look like." The lights dimmed, and holographic displays materialized around the room, showing real-time images of Earth's orbital infrastructure. What the aliens saw made their confidence begin to crumble. Those innocent-looking satellites they'd been monitoring weren't quite what they seemed. "These weather monitoring satellites that you've observed," General Lee explained, gesturing casually toward the display, "do indeed track atmospheric conditions, but they also serve other purposes." As he spoke, the holographic satellites began to transform. Panels slid open, revealing arrays of sophisticated equipment that definitely wasn't designed for measuring rainfall. The alien escorts took an involuntary step backward as the true nature of humanity's orbital network became clear. What they had dismissed as primitive scientific equipment was actually a carefully disguised defensive grid surrounding the entire planet. Admiral So-hee Kim stepped forward, her expression serious but not threatening. "We'd also like to show you some of our mining operations." The display shifted to show massive mechanical beasts working in asteroid fields, their enormous arms and drilling equipment making quick work of solid rock. "These machines," she continued, "can crack asteroids quite efficiently. They're designed to extract valuable minerals from the hardest materials in space." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "Of course, anything capable of cracking asteroids can handle other types of targets as well." The alien delegation exchanged nervous glances. They were beginning to realize that humanity's peaceful space program might not be as innocent as it appeared. Engineer Yun-seo Park stepped forward to complete the demonstration. Her friendly demeanor from previous meetings was still there, but now it carried a different weight. "And finally, our space exploration program. We're very proud of our rocket technology." The display showed various human spacecraft, from small scientific probes to massive cargo vessels. "These exploration rockets have remarkably flexible payload configurations," she explained with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "They can carry scientific instruments, supplies for space stations, construction materials for our orbital projects, or really anything else we might need to transport quickly to any location in the solar system." Ambassador Thane felt his confidence evaporating as the full picture became clear. Everything humanity had shown them, every piece of technology they'd demonstrated, every peaceful project they'd discussed, it all had dual purposes. The weather satellites were actually orbital weapons platforms. The mining equipment could be used to destroy enemy ships or installations. The exploration rockets were barely disguised missile delivery systems. "You've been watching us for decades," General Lee said, his voice still calm but now carrying a hint of something that made the aliens very uncomfortable. "You've seen our wars, our conflicts, our apparent inability to work together. What you didn't realize is that all of that competition has made us very, very good at finding creative solutions to difficult problems." The room fell silent as the implications hit home. Humanity hadn't been developing civilian technology that could be converted to military use. They'd been developing military technology disguised as civilian projects. Every advancement, every breakthrough, Every achievement had been carefully planned to serve multiple purposes. Admiral Kim spoke again, her voice gentle but firm. "We're not a threat to peaceful civilizations, Ambassador, but we're also not the helpless primitives your files suggested we were." Ambassador Thane realized with growing horror that their entire assessment of humanity had been catastrophically wrong. Earth wasn't a primitive world to be managed. It was a fortress that had been preparing for this moment for decades. Senior Analyst Keth had been staring at the same data streams for 18 straight hours, his multiple eyes burning from the strain. Coffee equivalents from 3 different worlds littered his workstation as he dove deeper into decades of surveillance records from Earth. Something was bothering him about their threat assessment, a nagging feeling that they'd missed something fundamental about human development. The breakthrough came when he started layering the data differently. Instead of looking at individual snapshots of human capability over time, he began tracking the rate of change itself. What he discovered made his blood run cold. Council Leader Prime Zor, Keth's voice cracked as he transmitted his emergency. "Report, we have a critical problem with our assessment protocols. We've been evaluating species completely wrong." The holographic display in Keth's laboratory showed graph after graph of human development over the past century. While other species showed steady, predictable advancement curves, humanity's progression looked like a series of increasingly steep exponential jumps. "We've been taking snapshots instead of measuring acceleration," he explained, his voice growing more urgent. "Our entire system evaluates civilizations as if they're at technological equilibrium. We measure what they have, not how fast they're advancing." The implications hit him like a physical blow. Every species they'd encountered before had followed predictable patterns, slow, steady advancement over thousands of years. Their assessment system was designed around this assumption, but humans were different, radically different. "Look at this data," Keith continued, pulling up specific examples. "In 1903, humans achieved powered flight. 66 years later, they were walking on their moon. Most species take millennia to make that kind of leap. But that wasn't even the most shocking part. The real revelation came when he examined the recent data from Earth's underground facilities. Human advancement had accelerated dramatically since first contact began. In a hidden laboratory beneath Seoul, Dr. Seungmin Ko was putting the finishing touches on something that should have been impossible. Working with insights gained from analyzing alien communications, he'd developed a prototype, faster-than-light communication device. The breakthrough had taken him just 3 months of intensive work, building on principles that humanity had learned by reverse engineering alien technology. "Initial tests are promising," Dr. Ko reported to his international colleagues during their daily video conference. "We should be able to send basic messages across interstellar distances within the next few weeks." Meanwhile, in a massive construction facility hidden beneath the mountains of Colorado, engineer Yoonji Lim was overseeing humanity's most ambitious project yet. Using a combination of reverse-engineered alien technology and human innovation, her team was building Earth's first-generation ship, a massive vessel capable of carrying thousands of people to distant star systems. "The hull construction is ahead of schedule," she reported to the Global Coordination Committee. "If we maintain current progress, we could have our first interstellar colony ship ready for launch within 2 years." Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Senior Analyst Keth delivered his devastating conclusion to the assembled leadership. "Council members, Earth's low-threat classification isn't just wrong, it's catastrophically obsolete. We classified humans based on static capabilities measured at specific points in time, but humans don't develop like other species." The data was undeniable. In the few months since first contact had begun, humanity had advanced further technologically than most species managed in centuries. They weren't just learning alien technology, they were improving it, adapting it, and in some cases surpassing it entirely. "How long do we have before they achieve technological parity with our most advanced civilizations?" asked Council Leader Prime Zor, his ancient voice heavy with dread. Keth ran the calculations one more time, hoping he'd made an error. He hadn't. "Based on current acceleration patterns, decades rather than millennia, and that's assuming their rate of advancement." doesn't continue to increase. The silence in the council chambers was deafening as the full scope of their mistake became clear. They hadn't just misclassified a primitive species, they had awakened a technological giant that was now growing stronger by the day. Ambassador Thane's personal communicator buzzed with an urgent message that made his crystalline features pale. New orders from the Galactic Council, marked with the highest priority codes he'd ever seen. As he read the directives, his confidence in his mission crumbled completely. He was no longer dealing with a primitive species to be managed. He was now negotiating with equals. The timing couldn't have been worse. Just hours earlier, in a secure facility beneath Seoul, Dr. Jisoo Yang had achieved something that sent shockwaves through both human and alien communities. Her team had successfully tested humanity's first faster-than-light probe, sending it to the edge of the solar system and back in mere minutes. The implications were staggering. Humans had just proven they could match one of the galaxy's most advanced technologies. Transmission successful, Dr. Yang announced to her international team, her voice barely containing her excitement. The probe reached its target coordinates and returned with complete data integrity. We've just achieved interstellar communication capability. The breakthrough represented more than just technological advancement. It was humanity's declaration that they were ready to join the galactic community as equals, not subjects. Meanwhile, in the deepest archives of the Galactic Council, senior analyst Keith had uncovered records that explained everything. His hands trembled as he accessed files that had been classified for thousands of years, documents that revealed the galaxy's darkest secret. The truth was terrifying in its simplicity. Throughout galactic history, there had been other species like humanity, civilizations that developed at impossible speeds, adapting and advancing faster than anyone thought possible. The Council had a name for them: rapid development species. And they were the galaxy's greatest fear. Council members, Keth reported in his final briefing, our archives show that rapid development species follow one of two paths. They either destroy themselves through war or environmental collapse before achieving interstellar travel, or they become the dominant power in the galaxy. The historical records were clear. Every galactic superpower that had ever existed had been a rapid development species. The current council members represented civilizations that had survived by being cautious, slow and careful, exactly the opposite of humanity's approach. We've been hoping for decades that humans would follow the first path, Keth continued, his voice heavy with the weight of revelation. Every war they fought, every environmental crisis they faced, every moment of division, we saw it as evidence that they would eventually destroy themselves before becoming a threat. But humanity had defied those expectations completely. In New York, President Chang Woo-seo stood before the United Nations General Assembly, addressing not just the representatives of Earth's nations, but the entire galaxy through alien communication, networks that humans had learned to access. Today, humanity takes its place among the stars, not as subjects but as equals, he declared, his words being translated into dozens of alien languages. We offer friendship to all peaceful civilizations, and we're prepared to defend ourselves against any who would threaten our world or our people. The response from Earth's population was electric. In Seoul, crowds gathered in the streets celebrating humanity's emergence as a galactic power. In London, Moscow and Tokyo, similar scenes played out as people realized their species had just announced itself as a major player on the cosmic stage. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Council Leader Prime Zor faced the reality of their catastrophic miscalculation. For thousands of years, they had maintained galactic stability by carefully managing the development of primitive species. They had perfected the art of guiding civilizations along predictable paths, ensuring that no single species could challenge the established order. But humanity had shattered that system completely. The low-threat classification will be remembered as the greatest intelligence failure in galactic history, Prime Zor admitted to his fellow council members. We didn't just underestimate humanity, we awakened a sleeping giant and gave them the motivation to unite as a species. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven that rapid development, global cooperation, and adaptive intelligence could overcome any obstacle. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and no one knew what that might mean for the established galactic order.